Loneliness is at an all-time high right now. The good news is God didn't design you to go through life alone. Bad news, maybe you've been struggling with mental health issues, feeling isolated or misunderstood. And the good news, you are not the only one here facing challenges like those. Bad news, you've had doubts and questions about your faith. The good news, this is a safe place with people who you can open up to discuss and explore those questions, who also desire to grow and learn. Bad news, you've struggled to find a sense of purpose and belonging as a teenager, or almost teenager for some of you. But good news, because of the church, you never have to be alone. And now for the best news, Jesus wants to help us live more fulfilling lives when we are connected to others. I loved how Anhi and Donovan both talked about community. It's the thing that they love the most about Fusion, is this idea of community. So we are starting off a 4-week series called Life in Community. So community involves doing life with other people. And here at Fusion, we're doing life with others who are trying to figure out what it means to know and to follow Jesus. So let me ask you a question. Do you want to be a part of something really super exciting? Yes. Do you want to be a part of something that involves some really cool people? Yes. Do you want to be a part of something that's better just because you're a part of it? Yes. Same. Well, guess what? That's Fusion. You're here. You're here. And Fusion is better because you're a part of it. Fusion exists to make disciples of Jesus who love God with all their heart, with all their soul, with all their mind, with all their strength, and love their neighbors as themselves. We want to come alongside of you during your middle school and your high school years to help you build a strong and close relationship with God so that you can experience his transforming love and become more like Jesus, and then go live out that transformation in the world. We do that best in community. When we seek to follow Jesus together in community, we're transformed. And that's our big idea for today. We do that when we are in community. So over the next few weeks, we are going to talk about how God has created you to live less lonely, less empty, to look more like Jesus, to be more loving, to be more peaceful, to have more clarity in your life, and to make better choices, all while gaining a group of friends who want that for you too, and that are seeking that in their own lives as well. So God has designed us to benefit from doing life with others. So let's dig into the scripture, and we're going to see a transformational community, what that looked like for some of the very first Christians. We're going to look at Acts 2, but before we jump into that passage, I want to give you just a little bit of a background of what's happening before we read it. So these first Christians, this first group of Christian friends, was a community of people called the disciples. They did life with Jesus and with each other. And after Jesus' death and resurrection, the disciples and the other believers were gathered to pray. Suddenly, they were filled with the Holy Spirit, and they started speaking in languages that they had never learned. And after hearing all of the languages being spoken, this crowd begins to gather to see what's happening, and they're both confused and amazed. And then one of Jesus' disciples stands up, it's Peter, and he explains to them what they're seeing, and they're seeing a work of God happening. He told them all about Jesus, about his death and his resurrection, and that Jesus was the Messiah that everyone had been waiting for. And then he told them to turn from their old lives and put their faith in Jesus. So that's all good news. And that day, 3,000 people believed, were baptized, and became part of this early Christian community. So now let's read from Acts chapter 2 about what happened next. On the screen, we'll follow along. So those who believed what Peter said were baptized and added to the church that day, about 3,000 in all. All the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship and to sharing in meals, including the Lord's Supper, and to prayer. A deep sense of awe came over them all, and the apostles performed many miraculous signs and wonders. And all the believers met together in one place. They shared everything they had. They sold their property and possessions and shared the money with those in need. They worshiped together at the temple each day. They met in homes for the Lord's Supper. They shared their meals with great joy and generosity, all while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of all people. And each day the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. So this is just 7 verses. But in them, we really do see a lot that's happening. We see these new Christians were really excited about their faith, and they started spending a lot of time together. They learned together. They hung out together. They shared meals together. They prayed together. That's a lot of together, right? It was like being part of a big family, supporting and encouraging each other in their new journey with Jesus. I would love to encourage you to go ahead and read Acts chapter 2 on your own and see if you can pick out some of the things, make a list of the things that they did, all that these new believers did together. But there's just 3 things that I want to focus in on tonight. And the first one is that life change happens when Christians spend time together. So we see from this passage how important it is to spend time together. Awesome things happen in your life when you spend intentional time with other Christ followers. Building strong relationships, as you know, takes time, right? We have to spend time with someone in order to grow closer to them. You become good friends by spending time with each other, learning about each other, supporting each other, and then being there for others in the good times and in the bad times. So when it comes to living in Christian community, if we're serious about wanting to build strong relationships, it's crucial that we meet together regularly. We have that opportunity to do that every Sunday here at Fusion. And when we invest in our community, we create an environment where we become a family, where we belong to one another, we grow spiritually, we support each other, and we journey together in our faith. And then the Bible describes what happens when we spend time together this way. Proverbs 27:17 says, as iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. Here's a picture of me with my best friend, Melissa. I met Melissa when she was here on staff, and I started volunteering underneath her leadership as a small group leader. We would talk together each week as we would clean up after small groups, and then we started meeting together every week and just spending time together. We talked a lot about ministry and life and families and following Jesus. Then we started studying the Bible together. We would pick up books and we would just share what we were learning about God, and we would dig in to the Bible and we would read together, we prayed together and supported and encouraged one another. I can tell you that I am who I am partly because of her influence in my life. Her friendship has made an incredible difference in my life and in my spiritual growth. And spending time with other Christ followers leads to having a group of like-minded friends who are there for each other, who do this with each other, who walk alongside of one another in the good times and the bad, and help each other get closer to Jesus and to become more like him. So that's what's happening with these believers in Acts. And that's really what I want for this community, for Fusion to be like too. All right, so the second thing that we learned from these verses is that life change, this transformation that comes from seeking God in community, it results in generosity. So in the passage, we saw that all the believers met together in one place and shared everything they had. They sold their property and possessions and shared the money with those in need. I love how these new believers had such an incredible way of caring for each other. They didn't only think about themselves and their own needs, they were selfless and they were willing to make sacrifices. They even sold their belongings and gave money to those who needed it. And this is what happens when the power of the Holy Spirit and when Jesus changes our lives. Jesus changes our hearts, and the result is that we are more generous. And when we're generous, we help bring people together, and we provide support. This kind of compassion and generosity, it strengthens our relationships and our connections with other believers, and then it displays to the world the amazing impact that Jesus can have on our lives. It doesn't just stay here with our community, it starts to spread, and that is another thing that I would love to see for Fusion, for this community, that we live lives of generosity. The Apostle Paul wrote about what this looks like in 2 Corinthians while he was describing a particular church community. It says, "Now I want you to know, dear brothers and sisters, what God in his kindness has done through the churches of Macedonia. They're being tested by many troubles, and they are very poor, but they are also filled with abundant joy, which has overflowed in rich generosity. For I can testify that they gave not only what they could afford, but far more, and they did of their own free will. They begged us again and again for the privilege of sharing in the gift for the believers in Jerusalem. They even did more than we hoped for their first action was to give themselves to the Lord and to us, just as God wanted them to do." That is a beautiful picture of a community that follows Jesus. They begged again and again for the privilege of being generous. Now, I can't tell you that I've had many moments in my life where I'm like, I'm begging for the privilege of giving and being generous. It's happened, and God is good, but I can't say. Sometimes, if I'm really honest, sometimes giving is a little hard. There's a little bit of a wrestle there. My heart wants to, but then I start thinking of all the things that I could be doing and what this might mean for our family, what this might mean for our lives and our future. And here, these people are begging, and they consider it a privilege to be generous. I would love that for this community. So that's the type of change that can happen because of Jesus. And Paul urged other believers to follow this lead. So what if Paul was writing a letter to describe the kind of church that we are when it comes to generosity? What do you think he'd say? Would he say that we're generous? Nobody wants to move. I say yes. I say yes. I believe that he would say we're generous. I really do. We can look at this building. We can look at the number of ministries that serve people. We can see the money that has been sent in to help build impoverished places, the offerings that are collected year after year after year and that are totally given away both locally and globally. I would say that we have seen generations in this church that are committed to giving. I think that's beautiful. I love that we get to be a part of that. But we may be tempted sometimes to think, I'll be generous later. When I have more stuff, I'll share it. When I have more money, I'll give to support the church. I'll give to charities. But Jesus calls us to be generous with what we have right now, even if it isn't much, and even if it isn't money. It doesn't have to just be money to be generous. And then now our third thing, the third thing that I want you to see from Acts chapter 2 is that life change results in worship. So in addition to meeting together and then displaying generosity, they worshiped God together. Jesus had changed their lives, and they felt a deep sense of gratitude and awe, and they praised him. It says they worshiped together at the temple each day. They met in homes for the Lord's Supper. They shared meals with great joy and generosity. Their example shows us that Jesus can ignite a desire to worship. And gathering in community to worship isn't just about our own personal connection with God. Now, worship does deepen our own personal relationship with God, but it also brings us closer to one another. Worshiping creates a shared sense of purpose and joy and unity as we focus on God together. So much more happened. Much more happened in Acts chapter 2 than these three things. But these are the things that I want to focus on. And these are the things that I am praying for our community, for Fusion, for this community to be this way. That we would be transformed, that we would become more like Jesus, that we would spend time together. Out of that, we would give generously because Jesus has been so generous to us. And then that we would worship God in response to the love that he has shown us. So what are some ways that we can live this out? Well, here are 5 things. 5 things that you can do. Everybody put up your fingers. 5 things. 5 things. All right, you're all here with me. Okay, the first thing, make the most of small groups. All right, so you're all going to be in small groups. We're going to kick those off in September. You're all going to be a part of a small group. And you have a choice. You can make the most of it, or you can just kind of show up and phone it in. So I want to encourage you to begin thinking about and praying about what this might mean for you. It might mean that there are times where you do just have to kind of sit and receive. But I want to encourage you to make the most by opening up, by sharing your thoughts, and by asking questions. And when you invest time building meaningful relationships, these relationships will help to make you stronger. And what's great is that you also will make them stronger as well. Okay, so that was the first one. Make the most of small groups. All right, second, practice generosity. So begin thinking and praying about how you can be generous with what you have. That might be generous with your money. Maybe you've got a really great job and you've got lots of money and you want to help out by supporting a ministry or a charity. There are so many great ways that God can use our our finances to build the kingdom. But you know what? It also might mean that you use your time. You give your time to serve, whether that's on Sunday mornings or whether that's in your community. I know so many of you do serve in Kid Life, which is incredible because I know. Kid Life can do so much of what they do because so many of you have committed to going and serving, whether that's on the tech team or as a small group leader, as a helper. There are just so many ways that your time can be used to bless and build the kingdom.